I'd like to start with a moment of silence. I'd like to ask everyone to remember Shirley Tate. She passed away last week. She was a county treasurer for many years. Roll call. I'll start with Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Kimke.
Present.
Commissioner Stevens. Present. We are all here. I'd like to open up the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name. And it'll be a 5-minute time limit.
I will be 5 minutes. I'm from the north here. I'm David Heinzelman. I'm from Easton Township.
Morning.
I see all the department heads here asking for money, I imagine, and I consider the 8% increase we had in the appraisals pretty much, I would think, enough, but maybe not. I don't know. I see you're considering raising the mill levy. I would hope you wouldn't do that, because most of our crop ground, I don't know if some of you even know what row crop ground is, but most of it has increased from 11 to 14% yearly for the last 3 or 4 years, and the state sets that rate, so that increases our taxes considerably on that. I don't know if you understand that or not. Jeff, do you understand
Definitely.
that? So if you can help us, I thought maybe when I got my reappraisal that went up anywhere from 17 to 18%, that we might have a little mill levy decrease. If you could do that,
That's what
it'd
we're
be
working on.
appreciated by everybody.
Yeah.
That's the only comment I had to make.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much for your time.
I understand the agriculture part of it also, because I
I know
understand the
you do.
USDA publishes a rate for crop ground in northeast Kansas. It's only going to be worth so much. Farmers are only going to pay so much to rent it, and agriculture's on an 8-year cycle. But yeah, last year was a bad year for agriculture, and it's not a good year to increase the property taxes on that. So I totally understand, and I know what you're talking about. And if your farm's in a CRP program, I mean, that's a fixed rate.
I had some in it for 15 years and you lose every year.
That's what I know.
Taxes
So,
do this.
Dave, you got any flood crop ground?
Flood ground?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, stranger
That's
bodies.
a Easton.
Yep. I know. That's what I figured.
Millwood Bridge.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, what bridge?
Yeah. Yeah, what bridge was that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Comments?
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street. A re-request, I guess, here again on Mr. Wilming's project, and he has agreed to reapply his preliminary plat as suggested by the county, instead of just going and bringing it back as it was without a reapplication. He had 2 requests that we made. One was, will his preliminary plat application fee be waived? The deadline is Friday. Director of Planning and Zoning is out till Monday, and we cannot get an answer, or did not get direction from them. And the other request was to be able to delay that application till 30 days out, since technically this has already been reviewed. So the 2 requests: will the preliminary plat fee, does this board support that being waived? And can we submit it 30 days before the meeting instead of the 45 days? Since they've already reviewed their traffic counts, and that's why it went to 45 days.
Thank you. Mr. Van Paris.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good morning. David Van Paris. My recollection is that since this matter had gone before the board, there was an earlier denial, but issues as to whether the applicant was given a fair opportunity to address the board, that the matter would be resubmitted through the normal channels, but that the application fee would be waived, but that the procedure to include the 30-day notice requirements would still apply. In other words, reset it, but in recognition of the earlier issue, waive the application fee. That's my recollection.
And my opinion is it's not really waiving the fee. The fee's already been
It's already
paid.
been paid.
So I don't see it as waiving a fee. I see it as just,
Not require a second fee.
not requiring another.
That's what I
second
think
fee
the
paid.
consensus was. I mean, there wasn't any motion on it. Does any of the commissioners
I guess-
have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, that makes sense to me. My question for staff would be, what is, when we have department heads out, surely we can allow for the additional staff, second in command, senior ranking officer of the department to make some decisions on their behalf. This single point of failure aspect, in my opinion, needs to be resolved sooner rather than later.
Or
Yeah, I understand that. I wasn't aware that there was any delay. In fact, I thought, because the conversation had already happened, that had already been relayed to Joe, so.
I agree. I thought it was
but-
handled too, but obviously through questions from planning and zoning, I could not get a clear answer.
And,
That it was waived or not required.
yeah, and so I thought it was already addressed, but in any situation, I'm always available to Joe. If you ever have that problem, just let me know. I'm happy to follow up, but I will discuss it with Mr. Joseph and his staff as well to make sure that he gives them proper authority to make decisions while he's out of the office.
Okay, and then, does his preliminary plat have to come in 45 days prior since it's technically been reviewed, or can it come in the 30-day along with the final plat?
Do you believe what the
30
county
days.
counselor said was the deadlines still stand? It's just the
deadlines
fee
still
that's
stand.
being waived.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Carpenter, 14681 Crider Road in Bonner Springs. I
Morning.
just want to thank you folks for the time that you've taken to listen to those of us that are opposed to the Lenape Sand Quarry, and I hope that you will continue to listen to the voices from Southern Leavenworth County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Then we'll close public comment and move on to administrative business.
I do have one item I want to discuss today, and we've communicated this to you already, but just so we make sure we make the necessary adjustment to next week's schedule. We did have a applicant, the Cobb Valley Sand Quarry, that was scheduled for next week. Staff has requested some additional information that will not be available by that date. We've worked with the applicant. They're agreeable to postpone their hearing in front of this board until the 21st?
28th.
28th of August.
I remember that day for some reason.
Happy birthday. We'll celebrate your birthday that day.
Yeah.
Everybody will be here for
Bring-
it.
Be a head party.
We'll bring about 2,000 slices of cake.
Yeah.
Chairman, before we move on, I did want to just quickly address the initial gentleman during public comment. So just for the record, I can assure you that this group is working incredibly hard to keep and/or decrease the existing mill levy. The only conversation that happened specific to the mill levy was to a number of outside agencies that are incredibly underfunded that do great work, and we thought there could be an opportunity to put it to a vote, so allow voters to choose as to whether or not they'd like to fund those programs, but it wasn't commissioner initiated, so I just thought you'd want to know that since you weren't at the meeting, so.
It was a discussion.
And I wanted to add, the reason I asked about the floodplain was if you had floodplain in Missouri bottoms. Yeah, and I know Stranger didn't flood like Missouri did, but there's some programs available I was going to make sure you knew about if you had Missouri bottoms.
That beach planted June 17th was underwater 24.
Yeah. Yep.
As long as we're jumping in on this, I'll just say, my opinion is if we're going to increase our budget by 1.5 million or somewhere in that neighborhood because of the increase in the assessments and valuations, that every group is asking for money. We have one group asking for 500,000 and one group asking for 50,000, and all these various groups. Well, I think the taxpayer should be viewed as a group. And to reduce the mill levy by a quarter mil would cost $168,000. So I think we, as a group, should consider that to be a priority as well as all the other groups.
Anything else under administrative business?
Given the conversation that just took place, just remind everybody that we do have a work session immediately following our regular meeting where we will be discussing that very item. So anybody who's here who'd like to stay for that is welcome to attend.
But not this afternoon?
Not this
Prior to
afternoon,
lunch.
it'll be before lunchtime.
Okay. All right, so any more administrative business?
No.
All right, then we'll move on to the consent agendas. Commissioners had a chance to look at everything on the consent agenda. Les pulling the Lenape Sand Quarry off of the planning and zoning for next Wednesday.
I just had a couple questions more specific to the check register. And it just so happens that the sheriff is here, but there were a couple of line items specific to vehicle maintenance that I thought were almost the value of the vehicle. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but do we have any detail as to that, or is that somebody on your staff, Andy, we could ask? When you see several $1,000s on a maintenance line item, it jumps out, so I was just kind of curious what specifically was being repaired, or what the failure was, or...
I'm not aware of what you're speaking about. I can be more specific.
And that's fine, I can do that. There were just two line items, I think it was 8,000 and 7,000 that were specific to maintenance, and I'm sure they're completely justified, they were just big line items, so I just wanted to...
And that could be a cumulative,
That could be
several
the whole fleet.
Could be. Again, it doesn't provide me much detail, so that's why I asked. So I'll follow up on that one. And then there was two different, on page 6 and page 8, trailer expenses that were pretty substantial. And again, I'm sure they're completely justified. I just, without the detail behind them.
Yeah, those would be purchase of trailers that were budgeted.
Purchases.
Right, okay, so for whom and for what purpose?
Public Works would be
Public-
the land
That's
deal
my
trailers.
guess, but-
Yeah, the backhoe trailers, yeah. They need 2 new trailers because they bought 2 new trucks.
So budgeted items, they're replacing existing? The existing is terminated, Purple Wave?
Yes.
It will be. They'll come to us now that they've got these and they get them online,
Surplus.
then they'll come to us to surplus equipment.
Okay.
And we'll make the approval.
And then, go ahead.
I was just gonna, on that issue, do you have a list, Mark, where they're telling you typically what kind of capital improvements they're planning from each department? I
Well,
mean,
yeah. They have like for fleet like this, they do have a schedule that they have in place, Public Works, that when they're going to be replacing their vehicles, they budget for it over the course of several years via depreciation or equipment reserve. Then, like during this process, the budget process that we're going through, they give a listing of what they're purchasing the following year. I think it's in the big book that y'all get.
Right.
And so then since they included in that budget, they're identifying what it is. Next year, when they go to purchase it, as long as it's within budget and it's identified in the budget that it was going to be replaced, then they go out for bids on it. If the bids come in under budget, they have authority to proceed with the purchase once the clerk validates that they have budget authority.
So where we would identify it would be like in last year's budget?
Yes.
correct.
Yes, that's correct.
And a lot of times
This
it's not out for bid, it just goes for.
New commissioner question.
Yeah.
They'll use a state procurement contract.
If there's a
or
state
government
procurement contract, that meets all bid specs, or I shouldn't say just state, because there are other ones, federal
There's
government.
lots of
I think the
others.
sheriff probably participates in the federal purchasing for law enforcement vehicles, because that's cheaper than the dealers can buy them for.
Somebody does all the bid work for you, and you can just go off their contract.
And then the last thing I had was the Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we're on a semi-annual payment type plan?
I'd have to ask the clerk that to be 100%, but we pay monthly. As far as when they submit a bill to us, we charge the employees and we pay monthly as part of our payroll process.
Okay.
But the clerk may account for it semi-annual, but I would say it's monthly, is that when we pay it.
Okay.
But on your original question, typically, the Public Works would bill the sheriff once a month, I believe, for vehicle maintenance out there. And that could include, that's tires and oil changes and anything else that needs to be done.
Okay.
Or even getting new vehicles ready, correct? They still do all the wiring for radios and lights and everything at our shop?
All the upfit.
Yeah, see, that could be, you could have
I think you're our best client at Public Works, aren't you, Andy?
Pretty much.
All right. So any other question on the consent agenda?
Go ahead.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, striking the Lenape sand plant off the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right. We are ready for the sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. And before you this morning is approval of a contract with Summit Food Service. Recently, decided to take another run at what the market had to offer to see what's competitive. In May of this year, went out for request for pricing, 5 different food services. CBM has been bought out and is now under the ownership of Summit Food Services. So the RBA will reference both CBM and Summit, but they are one and the same. So of the 5 RFPs that were sent out, 3 were returned. Went through each offering and determined that Summit Food Services was the not only the lowest, but the best service that we would be able to have to provide for our inmate populations, both in the jail and JDC. The contract is for 3 years with a 1-year follow-up, unlimited after that. We can expect a annual increase of whatever the CPI is, or 3%, whichever is less. Summit will also provide the specialty meals that we need, such as the religious meals, medical meals, and medical snacks. In actuality, sticking with Summit would be probably the most easiest and convenient for this office, in that their personnel already are in place, equipment's in place, and we have a good working relationship. I based the pricing off of what our average daily population was for last year, which was around 150. And what we will be able to do is save approximately $45,000 by contracting with Summit. They were able to go in and reprice their meals. So on 150, we're looking at $1.56 per meal. In actuality, with our population increasing, such as today, the jail is at 171, and JDC is at 6, for a total of 177. It's $1.41 that we would be paying. So at a minimum, we'd be saving approximately $45,000. In reality, probably considerably more than that. And then in doing this, I was able to reduce my request on my line item in my budget for inmate food services by approximately $45,000 as well.
Any questions of the sheriff?
This is probably a stupid one, so I'll preface it first. I can't recall who the contract is with Council of Aging, but we obviously do a tremendous amount of...
Terry Booker.
Okay, it is Terry. I was just curious, local, right, and I didn't know per meal if they were even in the ballpark, Andy. I know that's a lot of meals, I just was curious. I'm always trying to figure out when we've got, multiple divisions or departments that are doing similar services, is there a way to leverage that volume or pricing or anything else? And maybe there's I'm sure an obvious reason why not. I just thought I'd ask a question.
Many years ago, before we contracted with CBM, we did receive meals from Council on Aging. The issue was transporting them from one site to another. Inspectors didn't care for that idea. And a lot of times, by the time you got the food, it was cold.
Sure.
And in reality, the Council on Aging, they're not preparing 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. So that's one of the reasons we went out for contracts on a provider. We also looked at doing it in-house, and by the time you figure personnel cost and everything
Yeah, I wouldn't
we
suggest
can't,
that.
we can't really compete. So again, I believe that this is the best route to go.
And I would add that when we're preparing meals or for senior citizens, there's usually a different method of preparing the foods because of dietary differences that, as we age, there's less sodium put into the food when cooking, or spices and things like that, because the taste buds and things of people as they age become much more sensitive to spicy and indigestion and things like that. And so when we contract, or when Terry Booker provides those meals, he really keeps in mind the dietary needs of senior citizens, where, when Summit would be preparing, they're looking more at younger, type, population of people that they're even.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I'm not overly concerned with the palates of our inmates.
Right.
Just in general, seeing if we can leverage pricing, but I.
Yeah,
do
I know,
get your point, so.
I'm just saying
Go ahead, you
that
said
for
that.
our seniors.
Is that okay?
No,
Is that
no,
said?
I don't, no, that's not a problem. I'm just saying, but for our senior citizens,
Sure.
that there's just a little bit of difference.
Their dietary concerns
Yes.
are of importance to me.
Yes, that's why I said, so that's why I would say that we need to definitely pull
And
that
at
out.
$1.50 a meal, Andy, I'd sign up, myself and my family in a hurry, so.
Well, I'm sure the sheriff would invite you over for
Yeah,
lunch, and you could
sure.
eat with
Perfect.
someday, and you can just try it out.
I suspect you're under guidelines, what you have to provide for food service?
To an extent, and part of the meals, well, actually all the meals, the menus are prepared by a certified dietitian to make sure we meet all those regulations. In actuality, food service is a very litigated thing in corrections and detention, as you can imagine. And so this is something that we are comfortable in, that we are providing a soundly nutritious meal. Again, it may not be the items on the meal that they're wanting. Nobody's going to starve. They're going to receive the proper nutrition and the proper amount of calories each day.
So we've moved beyond bread and water.
We've moved beyond bread and water. We haven't gotten to steak yet, so.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Any more questions of the sheriff? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Summit Foods with annual increases not to exceed the CPI or 3%, whichever is less, following the term. The contract will be renewed on an annual basis.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the food contract? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Ready for adult community corrections, Rhonda?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Rhonda.
Morning.
For those that you don't know me, I'm Rhonda Berry. I'm the business manager for the Leavenworth Community Corrections. Ms. Waters, the director, is unavailable today, so you got me. Before you is the quarterly budget adjustment report for adult and juvenile community corrections. As you know, the community corrections fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th, so we just completed fiscal year 2019. KDOC requires signatures on this report if the line item adjustments total $5,000 or more. It's not uncommon to have the adjustments for expenditure items, not of this amount that you see in front of you. That's a rare occurrence. As you can see, the largest amount was funds were moved over were to the personnel category. I believe in part, the main reason for that was when the county switched over to the pay system, a lot of the changes didn't move over with it. And so there was funds coming out of the wrong accounts. And so that kind of offset where the personnel should have been coming out of the budget. And if you notice on the juvenile budget, there are 3 different departments included in that. There's Leavenworth Community Corrections, there's Atchison Juvenile Community Corrections, and then there's Leavenworth County, First District Intake and Assessment. So there's actually 3 on that one. Both of the Leavenworth and Atchison county ledgers balance with the juvenile budget. The Leavenworth Adult Community Corrections balances with the county clerk's general ledger. So basically, we're just here to get signatures so we can submit to close out our fiscal year 2019 by the end of the month. And that's what we're asking for today. Do you have any questions?
Any questions of Rhonda on this? This money, now this goes back, or does it go into your coffers? This money?
Not the money listed on those budget adjustments, no.
Okay.
The money that is not spent of the budgets
Yeah.
does not physically get sent back, no.
Okay.
They just reduce the amount they pay us the following fiscal
Okay.
year.
All right. All right, I'll entertain a motion if no one wants further questions.
Motion to approve the adjustment to the budget line items for the Adult Community Corrections Quarterly Report
Second?
Can authorizing the chairman to sign.
and authorizing the chairman to sign the document.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the budget adjustment? Voting?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Do we need both of them?
Oh, yeah, you got another one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the next one. Motion to approve the adjustments to the budget of the line item for Adult Community Corrections Quarterly, no, First Judicial, excuse me, picked up the wrong one. Motion to approve the adjustments to the budget line items for the Juvenile Community Corrections Quarterly Report for the First Judicial District and to authorize the chair to sign the document.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. All right. We're ready for Public Works Road Closure Policy. Mr.
Actually, the county council will handle that.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Commissioners, you've been presented with a proposed resolution. The caption speaks for its purpose. As background, from time to time, the county has received requests from individuals who own property adjacent to and served by county roads with very minimal traffic upon them. And unfortunately, in some instances, those roads with very minimal traffic become, quite frankly, a public nuisance in that it invites people to engage in what's colloquially referred to as mudding, four-wheel drive activities that cause harm to the road. They get off, they damage people's fences, they damage crops. It is more than minimal nuisance to the property owners who are affected. It also invites people to drop trash and debris upon the property, and I'll just euphemistically rephrase to it as engage in activity contrary to the public welfare. In this case, we have received a request, which will be the follow-up board order for the closure of a specific section of 227th Street. Kansas law allows you to close and restrict access to a public road without vacating the public road in certain instances. This resolution complies with the state statute, which is KSA 68-126, That statute gives you the authority to effect the closure and restriction of travel upon any public road when you find that it minimally impacts the general public travel and basically provides for the welfare of the property owners adjacent to the road. The policy that's been presented to you would propose that in the event property owners wished to close a road, that all of the property owners that are served by or adjacent to that road would need to join the petition. And the reason being, to use the 5 of you as an example, 4 of you wanted the road closed or restricted by, say, a locked gate. 1 of you did not. Road stays open because it's unfair to restrict that individual's access. Further, the policy is drafted so that the 4 of you could not lock Commissioner Culbertson out of the roadway either. So that property owners would all have to have access to the road, even though it's generally restricted to the public. The property owners would have to agree to bear all costs for the closure, and that would include the installation of any gates or fences, the installation of any appropriate signage as directed by the board. And when I reference the board, I would suggest you would probably utilize your county engineer to approve of any plan for any barrier, such as a gated fence, and signage to notify the general public that this road is closed to public access. The virtue of closing the road but not vacating the road is that it remains dedicated road right-of-way and is available for future use by the property owners at such time as it is deemed appropriate, and there are provisions in the resolution for that. It also provides that those requesting road closure, aside from bearing the cost of the installation of any barriers in the signage, would be responsible for the removal of those barriers and signage and the reconditioning of the road upon the completion of the period of closure. During the period of closure, the property owners would also have to agree that the county would provide no maintenance on the road. That would include no snow plowing. If it gets ruts in it, hope you can drive around them or you get to fix them. And upon the conclusion of the closure time, the resolution provides that there would be posted with the county clerk a bond or letter of credit sufficient for county crews to go back in, recondition the road so that it is suitable for public travel. This resolution has been presented, it's been reviewed by your engineering staff, it's been reviewed by Mr. Lawfrey. I believe it does comply with the provisions of KSA 68-126, and it would be used in instances where such closure at the discretion of the board would be found to benefit the property owners adjacent to and served by that road. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners have any questions? Mr. Van Perry's?
Maybe it's a question for Mark. How often do you anticipate this will come into play?
We maybe have once or twice a year where it could, but we haven't had a policy necessarily for people to refer to. So once we adopt a policy, maybe there might be more occasions, but I kind of doubt it. For them to take on the maintenance of the road, they have to have a real specific reason, and generally it wouldn't be a through road that's maintained right now.
We had one of these about 5 years ago. We should have done a policy then because we sat through some pretty ridiculous.
Gilman?
Gilman,
I didn't
is what I'm
say
thinking,
anything.
or no?
I didn't say what.
That's not what I was thinking.
But
That's the first
from
one that came to mind.
parking old cop cars across the road to dumping a load of rock in the middle of the road, putting a sign up. So I'm glad we have a policy on this now. Any other questions, Mr. Van Perry? Sure.
Not really a question. There's kind of 2 roads involved in these scenarios. They're either dead-end roads, like cul-de-sacs that don't go anywhere, or through roads. But this road and the one we were talking about, even though they were through roads, they were never really maintained in a manner where they could be used as a through road. This one in particular, every time it rains, it's impassable. Even if you graveled it, it's right on the Stranger Creek bank.
Right.
And it should have never been made a road in the first place. So basically, we're just returning it back to nature.
But basically, right now, we're just doing a policy in general, not specific to any road.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a resolution that establishes the policy. The statute requires that the actual closure be done by board order, and there's a follow-up item on your agenda regarding that.
And that's why I was thinking maybe we need to address the fact that there's dead-end roads and then there's through roads. So is the policy going to cover both?
Yes, Commissioner, in this case, the road is through. There would need to be 2 barriers constructed. I would offer this. You have received, at least the time, my tenure with the county, very, very few requests similar to this. We do receive complaints about people trespassing, getting off public roads and trespassing upon private property. But generally, as far as proposals to actually close the road by way of the installation of a barrier, they're very rare instances. I don't anticipate this opening some form of a floodgate to where people want to put checkpoints to control who goes in front of their houses. And this really is not designed for traffic control. This is designed to address situations where the property owners are suffering substantial harm caused by access of people other than the general traveling public using a public roadway to gain access to their property.
And I guess what I'm getting at is, I'm wondering if we need to add some verbiage or something in there, because there's another road that's getting ready to come up that's very similar to this, except it's a pretty well-maintained road, but it's a through road. It doesn't have to be. There are several ways around this road I'm talking about that's going to get asked to be closed. So are we going to address traffic count on the road prior to closing it? Because what's going to happen is this other road I'm talking about, if we propose to close it, just like this one, first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a bunch of people saying, hey, I use that road all the time to go through that particular area. Yeah, I can go around on 2 other roads just as easy, but
Is it a minimum maintenance road also?
No, it's gravel. So, but they're going to ask.
Well, each application would have to be reviewed by staff and
Okay.
evaluated, and each time there's a closure, it would have to
Okay.
be brought before the Board of County Commissioners for approval. It
Okay.
requires a board order, so.
Okay, 'cause what I'm getting
I think
at
there's kind of maybe first the staff review, and then the recommendation or not comes to the board. So ultimately, some of those things, they're allowed in here, but they would be addressed during that phase.
Okay, I just don't want to leave it gray enough where they can use it as a precedent to close a better road just because they want it closed for traffic reasons.
Commissioner Culbertson, that's a very valid point, and I'm glad you brought it up. The statute requires that the board find, again, that there is minimal impact to the traveling public by the closure or restriction of travel. And again, the purpose of this really, if you read the statute, is not so much traffic control as protection of private property.
Okay,
Traffic control, because these are public roadways maintained at public expense, and the general traveling public has the right to enter upon them, is an entirely different topic.
okay. So as long as it's case by case, then
Yes.
we'll be.
Case by case and limited factors.
And then the other question I had is about a key. So they're going to put a lock gate. Are we the key master or the?
Commissioners, I
involved
did
Jason?
not get into, the 223-page, I'll reference federal quality regulatory statement on this. It's basically a case-by-case basis. The resolution does require that all safety agencies, your ambulance, fire, sheriff, have access, and that would be, I presume, if it's a gated fence, through providing them with a key or providing some means to get it. And further, if you were even a member of the general public but had a lawful purpose to enter upon that section of roadway, you have to be granted access. And however that is done on a case-by-case basis, it would generally, very likely be with reference to a key provided to a gate, a lock on a gate. Commissioners, I will say this, the cost being borne by the property owners is not inconsequential. The county recently installed a barrier on the road you will shortly hear about It was done in a very secure manner by your Public Works crew, and those posts that the gate was to be affixed upon have subsequently been removed by having been pulled out of the ground somehow. So
By some knuckleheads in the middle of the night.
it would have taken heavy equipment to have removed these. People go to great lengths to trespass on other people's properties. But in this case, the property owners affected would be charged with the cost of constructing what they would deem to be a sufficient barrier, and it would have to pass review and approval by this board.
Any other questions, Mr. Van Paris, on this? And I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
What's the number for this resolution? Resolution to approve, it is. 2019-20, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Leavenworth County, Kansas, establishing a policy for the closure or restriction of travel upon certain county roads as authorized pursuant to KSA 68-126, establishing the financial responsibility of such restrictions or closure.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the resolution? Voting?
Aye.
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 We are ready. Buildings and grounds.
There is the
We have-
board order
that's
to
part-
actually
Okay.
allow the installation of a gate for the,
But you can sit up there. Yeah, there you go. All right, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt a board order authorizing the gate across 227th Street at the request of the petition property owners.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the gate closure on 227? Voting?
Aye.
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 Now we're ready for this.
Mr. Chairman,
the
for
motion include the board order number, Becky?
Board Order 3.
2019
We need to include that with the motion.
3.
Just amend the motion to include board order 2019-3.
Yeah.
So revise the motion.
If you could, please.
So revise the motion to adopt a board order authorizing a gate across 227th Street at the request of the petition property owners.
Board order 2019.
pursuant to Board Order 2019-3.
Court order 2019-3.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on Board Order 2019-3? Voting?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, we're ready for buildings and grounds.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Mr. Yocum.
Aaron Yocum, Buildings and Grounds. Before you guys, you have a RBA for a parking lot mill and resurface. Previous year of 2018, we did the south parking lot of the Justice Center and added a second entrance into it. It was scheduled for the north and east, which is the rear of the Justice Center, to be mill and overlaid this year. It is a budgeted item. We received 3 estimates back, Little Joe's being the lowest of them, and looking to move forward with a mill and overlay of the north parking lot and east parking lot.
This contractor's done most of the work over there in the past, correct?
Little Joe's has done work previously for the county. Last year, we used McConnell and Associates as they were the low bid for the south parking lot with the entrance, but both are qualified companies.
I was thinking they'd done some work previous. Maybe it's just crack sealing.
I believe they've done mill and overlay work as well as crack seal for the county, yes, sir.
Well, they've done work for Public Works also.
I believe so, sir.
Yeah, no.
Where are they based out of?
Little Joe's is based out of Bonner Springs, sir.
Yeah, they're just about local, but just not quite. Any questions of Aaron?
Only question I had was, when they built the building, the Justice Center, and it was city, county, I think even maybe state, there was supposed to be a division of costs for the building and then the continued maintenance. So this bill is coming out of just the county fund, but the city pays into that fund?
We have received funding for both sections from the city of Leavenworth.
Okay, okay. Do you know off the top of your head what that split is?
I believe it was $20,000 on each side, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's like 80-20 or something like that. It's that 20% rate.
Based upon the square footage occupancy of the building,
Okay, so it's like 80-20?
roughly.
Something like that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the low bid for the asphalt mill and overlay at the Justice Center parking lot from Little Joe's in the amount of $82,735.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Oh, something for me to sign?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Aaron.
Jeff, are you wanting to renegotiate that 80-20 split?
Doesn't sound very good.
How long do you propose to be in the first executive session meeting? 10 minutes? I don't know, because there's 3.
Oh, neither did.
15.
13, okay.
That all we need, just one?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yes, I
You too.
Thanks, Aaron.
I move that the board recess from open meeting session to go into a closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and that this board resume open session in this meeting room at 10:05 a.m. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culbertson, Vicki Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shimke, and Mike Steven.
Have a motion and a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on executive session? Voting?
Give it time.
Aye.
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 All right, so like the record show, we're returning to regular session. Executive session, topics were stuck, we limited to personnel or non-elected personnel. No decisions were made.
I move that the board recess from open session and go into a closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified in KSA 75-4319B1, and that this board resume open session in this meeting room at 10:25? At 10:25 a.m. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culbertson, Vicki Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shimke, and Mike Steven.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on executive session? Voting?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
The record show we've returned to regular session from executive session. Topic, discussion was limited to non-elected personnel and no decisions were made.
I move that this board recess from open session and go into a closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and that this board resume open session in this meeting room at 10:50 a.m. Present in this executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culbertson, Vicki Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shimke, and Mike Steven, County Administrator Mark Lawfrey, and Senior County Counselor David Van Paris.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the executive session? Voting?
Aye.
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 Record show, we returned to regular session. Executive session, discussion was limited to non-elected personnel. No decisions were made.
I move that this board recess from open session and go into a closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and that this board resume open session in this meeting room at 11:15 a.m. Present in the executive session will be Commissioner Jeff Culbertson, Vicki Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shemke, and Mike Steben, County Administrator Mark Lawfrey, and County Councilor David Van Paris.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further discussion on the executive session? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right, let the record show we returned to regular session. We was in executive session. Discussion was limited to non-elected personnel. No decisions were made. All right, we're in regular session.
Do we need to go into
Do
this
we,
one?
on the property acquisition, can it wait? Or
Yeah.
do we need to get, or do we need to?
We can,
accomplish that
I mean, we
today?
have people here waiting for the
Right.
budget, obviously. We could do the budget discussion and still have the executive session if we have time afterwards.
Okay.
It is a little timely as far as a
Right.
response, so, but I know there's also two commissioners that have to get going too, so.
Right.
And we do need to get the budget addressed and
Okay.
if we can. So it'd be fine to adjourn from our regular meeting, go into a
Do
work
the
session.
commissioners that are going to there to catch a flight, do you have till noon?
Yeah, till noon.
If we go past that, do you have any issues with us having that
My flight
dialogue?
leaves sooner than
I
yours.
could-
I could be till 1. I could be till 1.
I can't, I mean, my flight leaves before his flight.
Yeah, yours leaves at 4.
I was
No, mine
saying-
leaves at 3,
Oh, 3.
3:20, so.
Whether
I
the
would
budget
rather, I need to get,
To sign?
Spending time talking
So
about
what
it.
time
Yeah.
do you need, 12 o'clock is what time you need to leave for 12?
yeah, I want to leave at
Yeah.
noon.
Okay.
And I don't have to be in the
So-
executive session, I don't care.
Okay,
Can I
so we
ask a
can-
question about the budget?
Yeah.
We don't have to complete that discussion today, correct?
Well, we are running
Yeah,
into some
I think we are.
timelines that we have to get this done so we can get it published.
Well, it's really putting it on to try to do it in 45 minutes is really.
Well,
Well, I think what
When are you
we're looking
coming
for
back?
is, they'll be back next
So-
week.
Well, I don't know that a formal schedule or timeline's been communicated, so maybe walk us through what you prefer versus what's required.
Like next Wednesday.
When is the budget hearing scheduled for?
The 9th?
Friday the 9th?
Is when I'm going to publish it.
Oh, you're going to publish the 9th for a hearing on the 21st?
What the deal is it does entail having everything ready for the budget hearing. Before we publish it in the paper, which has to be published 10 days prior to your meeting, the latest being August 25th, we have to prepare the books. We have to have the budget ready for the public to view if they come in and have any questions on it. So
But again,
that's the deadline that we have. We can-
right, it's a self-imposed deadline though, correct?
No, that's the state
no, it's the
deadline.
state's deadline.
So Missouri's is different because they haven't even started theirs yet. I was just talking with the county commissioner, so.
Missouri can approve a budget in 30 days.
Still fit it
Well,
in?
why don't we
Anytime.
have why don't we even look at Monday having a budget work session? Why do we, why can't we just do it on Monday?
Well,
Well, if already all here on
it's
Wednesday.
conflict for me on Monday.
Can we just do the afternoon on Wednesday? Since we're already here for the regular meeting?
Well, we can, next Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do it in the morning.
Well,
There's not
that's
going to be
a
much on
that
the
is a
agenda next
conflict
week
for me.
because,
Oh, that.
That,
pulled
the
this in.
31st is a conflict
Yeah,
for
we
me
pulled
because
that.
I was notified today that I have to go to mandatory training at the Secretary of State's office to initiate the audit regulations. So I can do it Monday, Tuesday, I can do it on Tuesday,
Tuesday.
but I mean, I also have,
Well, how about we see how far we can get, maybe?
that's fine.
Yeah, Dennis under some
okay.
personal things that may result in us needing to really kind of work with her on.
But we have until the
this
25th?
Budget.
That is the final budget hearing, but there's a lot that
Yeah, but-
goes in before August 25th.
Understood, I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm just, what is to give you and your team enough time?
I have
What-
to have 10 days prior to that for it to be published in the paper.
Okay.
And prior to that, the document has to be open for inspection, as David said.
So the deadline by the state is August 25th. You need at least 10 days before that. And obviously, that's taking everything to the deadline.
No, you need at least 13 days to get to the newspaper and get it in. I mean, we can't just drop it the day.
John's right here, you just hand it to him.
Yeah. So probably 13 days is more realistic, but then that really puts them under a gun to get the book published,
So if
yes.
we get it done next Tuesday,
If we can work on it on Tuesday.
If we need to, yes, that'd work.
I mean,
I
I'm more
don't
than
want
glad
to
to
believe we
work
can get
with
through
you
it all in
guys.
a day either.
But the
It's $50 million.
31st is just not good for me.
So we want to target Tuesday.
We can start, I mean, do you want to start today and?
let's.
Well, we're gonna start today.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll
And
get
if
it.
we need to continue
Maybe
on.
we can
to
work
I'm just not
Tuesday.
optimistic we'll get through in 35 minutes, so.
Yeah. I would just,
The property acquisition.
I don't need to be in that.
Do you care if you're a part of that, or are you okay with us having the property acquisition conversation in your absence?
So then we can adjourn from our regular meeting, go into the work session for the
Okay.
budget.
Motion to
So-
adjourn from the regular meeting?
But we can go back in, if we go back to executive session.
You can do an executive session out of the work session because it is a public meeting.
Yes.
I conferred with the county
Yes.
council before
Oh.
making that statement.
All right. How long would the executive session take? 5 minutes?
Maybe 5 minutes.
You want to get that out of the way? Because it's time sensitive also.
So
Might as well
reconvene at
just, if it takes
11:30.
5 minutes, and we're gonna probably end up with this budget going to Tuesday.
Right.
Might as well.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move that this board recess from open session and go into closed executive session for the preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property as justified by KSA 75-4319B6, and that this board resume open session in this meeting room at 11:30 a.m. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culbertson, Vicki Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shimke, and Mike Stephen, County Administrator Mark Lawfrey, and County Councilor David Van Paris.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the executive session? Voting?
Aye.
Let the record show we've returned to regular session. The executive session discussion was limited to property acquisition, and no decisions were made.
Commissioners, I think perhaps the most accurate rendition of what occurred would be that no decision has been made in any
Action was taken.
any action would be brought before the board for adoption in open session. And authorize the county administrator to proceed as discussed in executive session with no authority to finalize any action until brought before the board in open session.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion on the floor to authorize the county administrator to enter into negotiations on real property.
Just proceed as discussed with direction to bring any final decision before the board in open session.
Was that your motion?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the property acquisition? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right.
Motion to,
And motion to adjourn and go into.
Motion.
portion.
so moved.
All right.